Welcome to another edition of Pink Sock Podcast, and today we're going to be discussing TV and movie theories. Titanic, is it a prequel? Ed, Ed and Eddie, are those kids actually alive? And many, many more. So, Gorak, are you ready to jump into some of these theories?
Like X-Files theories, yeah.
These are all fan theories. I don't have the usernames in front of me, but I did write the theories down. These are all theories that I found on Reddit.
Yeah.
They're all fan theories about some of our favorite movies. Now, I will let you decide, Greg. Which one do you want us to do first? Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Finding Nemo, Rugrats, Up, Ed, Ed and Eddie, Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Jesus Christ.
I'm saving Titanic for last.
Yeah.
Which one do you want me to do first?
Ed and Eddie. Because that show is weird.
Here's the Ed, Ed and Eddie theory. I'm going to read the entire theory. It is kind of long. All of them are kind of long theories. And then we can discuss it as I go. The Ed, Ed and Eddie fan theory that I found, there's many of them. For each of these, there's many of them, but this is the one that I found that I enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
Theory states that the kids who inhabit the cul-de-sac are actually dead in reality, and that the lives they lead there actually take place in a purgatory-like setting. According to the theory, the children of the cul-de-sac each hail from different eras spanning early 1900s to early 2000s. This would explain why the year for the show is very hard to pinpoint, with multiple eras present, and also why there aren't any adults in the show, although you do catch a glimpse every now and again. Rolf arrived first from the 1900s, as the theory goes. His family had moved to Peach Creek in order to establish a farm on its land. Rolf died around 1903 when his family farm animal stampeded and trampled him to death. This was supposed to be the reason as to why he only has one cow, one goat, a few pigs, and a few chickens. Not enough animals to cause a fatal stampede in the afterlife. Johnny arrived second. Johnny 2x4. He came to the cul-de-sac not too long after Rolf's death. Having no friends, Johnny took a marker and drew a face on a piece of wood and dubbed it as Plank. He died in 1922 after fighting a long battle with tuberculosis. 6 years before the discovery of penicillin, he took his friend Plank with him in the afterlife, since he was the last thing that he saw in life before he died. Purgatory would also explain Plank's occasional sentient behavior, which most notably demonstrated during the movie. Eddie came next. He was born in New York and eventually moved to Peach Creek during the Great Depression era, always trying to get a quick buck. He always set up scams to get money from the cul-de-sac kids in an effort to escape the poverty he spent his whole life in. Eddie didn't have a proper father figure since his real father abandoned him and his mother shortly after he was born. With this came the big bro he adored and idolized so very much, despite the latter's abusive nature. After one of his scams went awry, Eddie was chased by the swindled children of the cul-de-sac and ran to the lake and jumped into it. Eddie ended up drowning to death in the lake, and he soon joined the deceased children in the afterlife. Even though he was no longer alive, Eddie still tried to chase after the almighty dollar by continuing his swindling nature in the afterlife. Ed and Sarah were next to arrive in the cul-de-sac. Their father had died fighting in World War II, and as a result, their mother became distant and disconnected. To cope, Sarah developed her bossy attitude, trying to fill the role of their parents used to fill before their father died and their mother stopped caring. Conversely, Ed shut the world out and delved into the fantasy worlds of comic books and monster movies, which exploded in popularity during and after World War II. In order to escape his unhappy life, they both died in a freak car accident in 1953, thus joining the past kid's death. Naz was born in the 1960s era to hippie parents, which described as a flower child. She was a rather flirtatious young girl who would always act that way towards male children of the neighborhood. In the summer of 1979, a serial killer escaped a local asylum, made his way into her house, assaulted her, and murdered her along with her entire family. Ed and Double D was born in the 70s. When preparing to attend college from a young age, became a societal norm expectation and was raised by very strict, controlling, emotional, distant parents. They pushed him to succeed academically and to be perfectly clean and neat. He is believed to have died as a result of a gas leak causing an explosion with a Bunsen burner from his chemistry set. Sorry, this is a long theory. Kevin was born around the early 1980s. He was born to a broken down house, and he also had an abusive father who was poorly educated, and his mother had passed away when he was a year old. Because of his situation at home, Kevin would act his frustrations out on other children of the cul-de-sac, becoming a bully to cope with his repressed anger. His fascination with his bike fits right in with the birth of the popular X Games in 1995. One night in the winter of 99, his father fatally beat him in a fit of drunken rage, and he died on his way to the hospital. His father was then convicted of murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison. When Kevin entered into the afterlife, he reimagined his father as loving and that he would shower him with gifts. He still kept his bullying ways in the afterlife, however. Jimmy was the last child to enter the cul-de-sac. He was born in the early 1990s and was diagnosed with leukemia. He never associated with the other cul-de-sac children because his parents believed he was too frail to be around the other kids, and he remained bedridden for the remainder of his life. Because of this fact, after fighting the difficult battle, Jimmy eventually succumbed to the illness and soon joined the cul-de-sac purgatory, which makes them complete. Now, people may ask about the Cankers. The Cankers were different from the other neighborhood children. It is believed that they are actually demons that were sent to the cul-de-sac to torment the souls of the remaining children who didn't cross over to heaven. The Cankers are the only characters with normal colored tongues, which would seem to indicate that they are not dead and that therefore they must be something different. Surprisingly, the Cankers are attracted to the Eds for unknown reasons. However, one common guess is that they are the weakest-willed children of the cul-de-sac, and because each of the Ed and Eddie characters symbolize a certain deadly sin. Now, as I just stated, Gorak, the children, other than the Cankers, have green and blue tongues, which is the color your tongue turns when you die. What do you think of that theory?
Wild.
Right? Like it's a fucking...
Sorry, I just heard an echo. I think it's coming from your end.
Hold on 1 second. I can plug in my headphones if we have an echo. Now, do you believe that could be a legit idea from the Ed and Eddie theory?
I think so. But like what you were telling me, yeah.
I'm sorry, Grant. Could you repeat that? My headphones got plugged in and I caught only part of that.
I think so.
Also, here's
the whole theory behind it. It's pretty crazy.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for joining, and thank you, Renee, for joining. Love you both. Now, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe, like, and share button. There's another theory about Ed and Eddie that I read that is not the whole death theory. This one is kind of more believable. Ed, and Eddie are actually schizophrenic. It's one person, and so are the Cankers.
Okay.
Well, not schizophrenic. They have multiple personality disorder, is the better way to describe it. Which theory do you think's more believable, though? The multiple personality one, or the fact that Ed and Eddie are all dead and they're living a weird life?
The first one.
Yes, Renee. Ed has split personalities and it's only one person. I think both would be a good theory. I think Ed and Eddie's the same person. Or here I'm entering another theory. What if Ed, Ed, and Eddie are all the same soul, but like due to reincarnation, they're more than one person.
Maybe, you never know. It looks like it though.
Now, is there anything you wanted to add about that theory? Like, do you enjoy that theory?
It's crazy.
It's fucking
Like,
wild.
it is, yeah. I remember watching this. I think it was on Nickelodeon. I think it was. My sister, she always make me watch Nickelodeon fucking
Well, Ed, and Eddie was Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network. Yeah, but then Cartoon Network was on Nickelodeon, I think.
No, Cartoon Network was
it separate?
It was separate.
Okay, I always get mixed up with those two. It's been
can you see?
Get me. Yeah, I can see you.
Yeah, Renee says she can't see me. I don't know what's going on.
It's not your webcam.
It's not my webcam. I mean, you can see me, you can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing what Renee is talking about because I'm like, you can't see me. Yeah, I'm John Cena. You can't see me.
But I can.
Yeah, I can see me. So I don't know. Renee, it might be, I don't know. But Ed, Ed and Eddie, I think, is a great show. And I think a lot of these theories, as you'll notice, they're overthinking it. And that's with any theory. This next theory makes a lot more sense. It's a very short theory. It's short and sweet. I needed to give you a short one amongst all these fucking long ass theories. Courage the Cowardly Dog. Did you ever watch that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that show.
That show is not what you think. All of the monsters in Courage the Cowardly Dog aren't real. That is just how Courage pictures life around him with an overactive and over anxious mind.
It kind of reminds me like the dog from Ren and Stimpy, eh?
Kind of. But the theory is that he is overreacting, and this is how his canine mind imagines the world around him. They're not actually monsters.
You know what's really funny? I'm looking at this right now on Google. Like this and Ed, and Eddie, whatever it was called, they all came out in the 90s. It kind of looks like they're like early 90s cartoons, the way how it's.
A lot of these shows and movies that I am doing are all from like my childhood or older movie. Like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Sorry, not Charlie.
I used to watch these when I was like younger.
But what do you think of that? Courage the Cowardly Dog. Do you think the monsters are real, or do you think that it's just a figment of his imagination?
I think it's his imagination, man.
It makes sense because dogs do have overactive imaginations. They freak out about little things. It all makes sense. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Let me know what you think.
I'm just scrolling through pictures on here right now. Because this does bring me back memories when me and my sister used to watch this shit.
Did you want to cover... Now, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is the longest one I've got. So
I'll keep that second last.
I'll keep that second to last. The movie Up. Have you seen that one? Up. It's the movie about that old guy that's gets that house and he has all the balloons and he goes up and like shit like that.
No, but I'm just seeing the ratings right now and it's got a really good rating.
Well, for those of you that have seen Up, I'm going to go through this this kind of theory about the movie that makes sense. Carl Fredricksen is the main character. He's an older guy. He's a grumpy, cruel old man to many people. But thanks to the first 20 minutes of Up, we know he is like this because his lifelong best friend and wife had died and left him feeling empty and lonely. Very sad for a Disney movie. Because Carl is adventurous and still young on the inside, he plans to avoid the retirement home he was ordered to live in by tying hundreds of balloons to his house and traveling thousands of miles in the air. The event set into motion the entire plot for the film, but consider this movie logically. It holds a deeper meaning that is overshadowed by the adventures of traveling with the house floating by balloons. Carl and Ellie have bonded and found love through their idolization of explorer Charles Muntz and have always wished to live in a house next to South American waterfall, Paradise Falls. But Ellie passed away before they can experience his lifelong dream. Carl felt he wronged Ellie, and he realizes his whole life he prioritized other happenings and forgot about this passion they once shared. Carl was being forced to leave the biggest memento he has of Ellie, their house. Life had and would continue to go on downhill from him after he realizes that. He'd be judged, others, as he slowly rotted away in a retirement home that would feel like a jail to him. He's at peace and almost accepting of dying. He's lived his life and wants to see his wife again after all the years he had missed her. What's the best way to die peacefully and readily in your own house? After nostalgically finishing what he never gave Ellie, a house in Paradise Falls. From what we see, Carl is unprepared to land his home in the wilderness. He has nowhere to go, an increasingly shortage of food, and no means to hunt or forage. He's also 80 years old. This may be untrue. For all we know, he could have a stockpile of oatmeal in his basement, and for what? Sadly, he had no reason to live anymore, nothing to do. He expected to die peacefully in a place he had promised his wife they'd be together. On the bright side, this completely changes when he meets Russell and Doug, and he finds new meaning to life. So the movie's basically him crossing to the afterworld. The whole purpose of the balloons and stuff, he's dying. That's symbolism of his death. Up is a very sad movie, Greg.
That's why I was saying that it got really good ratings. It's 98% Rotten Tomatoes, 88 out of 100 Metacritic, and IMDb 8.3 out of 10.
Damn. Well, since you haven't seen Up, I'm not going to really get into the theory too much. But guys, comment below and let me know what you think of that theory. We're going to get into some shows and stuff that you might recognize, Gorak.
Yeah, go for it.
Finding Nemo.
Yep.
Nemo was not real.
What?
That's the theory.
I'm upset.
Hear me out on this. Marlin imagined him as a way to cope with the death of his wife and children. At the beginning of the film, we see Marlin lose his entire family except one child, Nemo. The theory claims that Nemo is not actually real, and that this is simply the way Marlin's brain chooses to deal with this huge loss. Even the title of the film and Nemo's name are a huge clue to the audience. In Latin, Nemo means no one. Therefore, the film is called Finding No One. Alongside all this, the theory also claims that Dory is such a good friend of Marlin because of her short-term memory loss makes it easy for Marlin to continue his story. There is another theory a friend told me, and this one's a more messed up theory. Clownfish, they, from my understanding, if the female dies, the male becomes asexual and tries to breed with their young. So Marlin is trying to find Nemo so he could breed with Nemo. That's fucked up too.
Yeah, that is a little fucked up.
So
carry on.
What's crazy is watch the movie again with that in mind, that possibility, and it's a completely different movie. A completely fucking different movie, bro. Completely fucking different movie. So we have reached the longer ones. Rugrats. You watched Rugrats. We all watched Rugrats growing up.
Yeah.
Here's a theory that will blow your fucking mind, Greg. You ready?
Holy, yeah.
The babies in Rugrats aren't real.
What?
They're all dead.
What? No.
The Rugrats really were a figment of Angelica's demonic and unimaginable imagination. Chucky died in 1986 along with his mother. That's why Chaz is a nervous wreck all the time. Tommy was born in 1988, but he was a stillborn. That's why Stu is constantly in the basement making toys for the son that never had a chance to live. The DeVilles had an abortion in 1990. Angelica couldn't figure out whether it was a boy or girl, so she created twins. As for All Grown Up, the teenage Angelica became addicted to various narcotics, which further aggravated her schizophrenia, bringing her back to her childhood. And thus her creation she obsessed over. Sorry, I got like fucking something in my throat. Because of the time lapse between the present and the last time she interacted with her creations, she made them older. Angelica was constantly taking hits of acid, so she would never have to live without her creations, who were her only company. In a judgmental world, Angelica's mom actually died of a heroin overdose in 1982. Just after Angelica was born, and Drew, in his depression, married a gold-digging whore that Angelica idolized because she fooled herself into thinking it was her real mom, but always had a concept of her mom, Cynthia, and took a Barbie doll and made it after her mom's image, wearing an unwashed orange dress and having jacked up hair, which is why she was so attached to it. Later in life, she followed her mom's footsteps with drugs and everything, dying of an overdose at the age of 13 when All Grown Up was canceled. The only Rugrat not to be fictional, however, was unborn Tommy's brother, Dill.
Yeah.
However, Angelica didn't know the difference between Dill and her creations. Although Dill didn't follow her commands, after endlessly crying and refusal to disappear like the others did when Angelica was angry at them, she hit him. Due to this, he sustained a brain hemorrhage, which resulted in a deformation. As he grew up, his damage only became more evident, and by the time he was 9 and All Grown Up, he lived as an outcast, being ridiculed for his weirdness. The immense guilt over this is what led Angelica into her drug use and is what led Angelica to uncreate the Rugrats briefly until her experience with hallucinogens. On a trip to Paris to find love, Chaz married a woman named Kyra. He was actually going to marry a different woman named Coco, but she wanted him for his money, who had a daughter named Kimmy. That was torn from her, and she was a cocaine addict. Angelica imagined her from Carrot's stories. He lost his mind after the death of his wife and was in denial that she was ever a prostitute. Upon returning to America, Chaz and Kara married, and she got her green card. It was actually a really happy and romantic story. Kara continued to struggle with addiction, but was relatively happy with her life and Chaz. Susie, it was actually Angelica's only friend who entered the tough of Angelica's creations. She was Angelica's only friend who entertained the thought of Angelica's creations for her sake. Angelica spent the last days of her life in the back of a school cafeteria, imagining friends around her and playing the lives of her creations. What do you think of that shit?
That's another wild one as well. You'd never think about that, eh?
Hey, Morgan, thanks for joining, dear. Rugrats was fucking wild, but if you watch that is crazy. They're all dead. What's up with these kid shows and all the characters being dead?
I don't know. And having and all dead and having split personalities as well.
Right? And these are just theories. Like, they could be false.
They could be like they could do like a horror movie of these shows.
I was gonna save Titanic for last.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm going to save Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory for last, because that's the longest one we got. And that one is a completely different movie if you break it down into details. So I'm going to do Titanic next. Titanic is actually a prequel to another movie.
Oh, really?
Hear me out. Jack from Titanic is a time traveler. He was only sent there to save Rose from committing suicide and altering the timeline. This may seem ridiculous to think about at first, but if Rose had jumped to her demise, the ship would have stopped to look for her. Temporary delaying would either lead to warmer weather, or the Titanic would have been traveling during the day and would have seen the iceberg and would have moved. So that would have meant that the Titanic wouldn't have sunk. So this is why Jack made it a note to spend so much time with her, because his job was to ensure her survival. Let's take a look at the evidence, Gorak. Jack didn't have any currency for his time period, correct?
Yeah.
So he had to gamble in order to get the ticket in the first place. When he was spending time with Rose, he mentioned fishing in Lake Wissota, which was a man-made lake that was created in 1917, which was 5 years after the Titanic had already sunk. His haircut also was completely out of place for that era, and the rucksack wasn't even common until the 1930s. He claims he will take Rose on a roller coaster in the Santa Monica Pier, which wasn't built until 1916, which was 4 years after the Titanic had sunk. So how would Jack have knowledge of these places, for one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's where the prequel comes into place. James Cameron made Titanic, correct?
Yeah, he did.
You know what other movie he made?
Which one?
Terminator.
Yeah.
Terminator. Rose is Sarah Connor's grandmother.
That is weird as shit.
Titanic is a Terminator prequel.
That is weird, man. Fuck off.
So you have to watch it: Titanic, Terminator.
No, I sat through Titanic one time, and that movie went on for fucking ages. So no.
I watched it in theaters in 3D. That ending where that old woman's leaning over the ship, her titties are all over her, sagging all over her face and shit. You're like, no, I'm just kidding. That's not how it went.
What Titanic movie were you watching?
You want to watch it for a friend?
Yeah. They did make a Titanic 2, but then that flopped.
I think they should have done a Titanic horror movie.
But that's Ghost Ship.
No. Titanic movie. They redo the Titanic, but it's haunted by Jack's ghost, and he kills people.
I thought you said about Jack Sparrow.
All right, dude. Are you ready for the big theory, though?
I don't believe that is fucking weird. I'm gonna look this up quickly.
Titanic is a Terminator prequel, bro. Are you ready for the Willy Wonka theory?
Hold up for a second, dude, because like this is too early in the morning for me for this shit right now.
What do you guys think? Do you guys think Titanic is a Terminator prequel? Go ahead and comment below. Leave in the comments in the live chat. Let us know what you think. Is Terminator, or Titanic, I mean, a Terminator prequel?
Hey, Titanic Terminator theory.
They're the same. Yeah, it's a prequel.
So why didn't he save? He could have gone back time and saved the chick and leave. And save Leonardo DiCaprio, and Leonardo DiCaprio would be like John Connor.
Yeah, but the Titanic was going to sink regardless.
Who cares? You can always go back time.
It's a great theory.
That is weird shit, man.
Do you want to jump into the Willy Wonka one? It's kind of long.
Yeah, but I still can't get my head around this one. That's crazy.
Willy Wonka is a serial killer.
Oh. And that's a horror movie.
It is. If you rewatch the original Gene Wilder, not the Johnny Depp one, the Johnny Depp one kind of outdoes this theory.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Titanic was a ghost ship. You might be right, Renee. Ghost ship and Titanic are related. But anyway, the Willy Wonka movie, if you watch the original with Gene Wilder and you watch it with this theory in mind, it's a scary movie. Willy Wonka is like Jigsaw.
It is.
Willy Wonka is like Jigsaw.
So you reckon it's pre-Saw?
Maybe. It might be a prequel. Here's the full theory in its entirety. You can find it on Reddit. I'm going to read it all the way through. You can interrupt me whenever you want to add to this theory, however you want, Gorak, but I'm going to
Yeah.
read it. Willy Wonka hates the children in the movie. In fact, he hates a lot of things in his life. He hates
Yeah.
that people kept trying to steal his recipes, and despite being one of the most famous and well-beloved men in the world, he doesn't really seem to gain any satisfaction from it. He spends most of his time locked away in his factory, constantly working. He doesn't have a personal life. He doesn't have a wife or kids of his own. Long story short, he is deeply depressed. He's always smiling, but his smile is almost always fake, and he's usually downright sarcastic. He's barely able to hide his contempt for the kids. Now, one of the reasons that Wonka hates children is because they don't do as they are told. Wonka planned everything out in this movie from the beginning. Everything in the factory is something that a kid would love, and they weren't supposed to touch anything unless he told them to. All the children, even Charlie, broke these rules. One thing to notice, before each kid does the thing they're not supposed to, Wonka does warn them. This justifies the murder in his own mind. In his mind, he's not killing the children, they're killing themselves by choosing to break the rules. Wonka insisted at the end of the movie that all the children lived. And this is the original one, because the Johnny Depp movie, you see the kids at the end of the movie. You don't in the original. None of the children leave the factory in the original.
No, they don't.
They don't.
No.
Also, Wonka established in the very first scene that he was not to be trusted. He's not an honest character. He uses deceit and manipulation to test the kids. So, should we really trust him when he claims at the end of the movie that all the kids are fine and restored to their normal selves? No. But why am I so sure the kids are dead? The writer asks. Because in this universe, the laws of reality, while it might be slightly bent, still apply. Augustus is literally drowned in chocolate. Violet's body is filled with juice. Even if they did get all the juice out, it would still have done irreparable damage to her internal organs and skin, assuming there wasn't any sharp objects like knives or sharp chocolate edges to break the fall of the bad egg trap box, and assuming Veraku, or however you pronounce that person's name, didn't break her neck from the fall at the end, it's still unlikely that they even survived. Mike Teavee had his entire body scrambled into tiny million pieces and reassembled. Now, assuming all the internal organs are reassembled properly by the machine that was primarily calibrated to deal with chocolate, there's still the fact that he's tiny. Now we have to try stretching him, and even if you do stretch his arms and legs, he'll still have a small body, so you'd have to use the shrink ray, kind of like from Honey, I Blew the Kids, where he grew in size. And even if he did survive as a small person, like a little smaller version of himself, he would have still died because he would have fallen off the countertop to his death. He has to get off the countertop somehow. Wonka's initial plan was to kill all the children, including Charlie, and his eventual plan was to kill himself. But he wanted to kill the children and parents, well, the parents watched to teach them a lesson. He's kind of the children's version of Jigsaw, as I stated prior. As pointed out before, he does warn the children before they choose to break the rules, and as fantastical as everything is, it does operate by a certain set of rules that he can be deciphered, not unlike a jigsaw trap. The floating portion was meant to kill Charlie, but he figured out how to make it work. The chewing gum wouldn't have been fatal to Violet had she stopped before the blueberry pie, which Wonka did warn her about. The bad egg trapdoor was clearly established, and the rules of the TV transporter were pretty obvious if they had been paying attention. Now, to the murder-suicide, there's two different ways to take the ending of the movie. There's the cop-out way, where the glass elevator shattered and instantly killed Charlie, his grandfather, and Wonka, and the rest is just a fantasy, but that's too simple. Instead, you could take the ending literally and say the glass didn't break and they eventually did float off into the sky. But first of all, regardless of whether the ending did or did not happen, I think it's extremely obvious that Wonka didn't know the elevator was actually going to go through the ceiling, and he even says that himself.
Yeah.
So at first, He was upset that Charlie broke all the rules and didn't die. Then he was impressed with himself because the floating potion actually worked. So he gave him a second chance. If Charlie had left to give the secret recipe to the compositor, I'm fairly certain there would have been a dramatically iconic. I can't fucking speak today. There would have been a dramatically ironic death that would have happened as a result. However, Charlie chose to honor the rules even when he didn't get anything out of it. This is why he decides to murder suicide instead. See, I think he was planning on killing himself with the elevator after the event was over, but he decides to take Charlie and his grandpa with him on the elevator because they're the only ones that are as good as he is in his own mind.
From what I'm reading here as well, there's fan conspiracies saying that Willy Wonka is a sinister man.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading. I don't know who the writer was, but you might be reading the same thing.
Maybe. The Screen Rant?
I don't know. I think I might have read it from Screen Rant. There's various ones.
I'm from what you were saying, I reckon this is like a prequel to the Saw movies.
Yes, and
for sure, 100%.
And at the very end of the movie, when he's on that elevator, he was using Charlie and his grandpa as test subjects to see if it was actually going to float, because he didn't care if they lived or not.
Yeah.
It's
I kind of sorry, dude, but like
you're good.
I find it funny how they call this the classic kids family movie of all time. It is, but if you do some research on this, it's kind of creepy.
And as Renee said, the guy did say that no one has ever went into the factory and nobody's ever came out.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you really look at the end of the movie, it ends with them floating into the sky.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at it from an actual basic law of physics standpoint, the elevator's either going to fall and kill them eventually, or it's going to keep going up into space and they're all going to burn into space. So they're going to die regardless. So Willy Wonka's plan was to kill Charlie and himself.
That's insane. I hope they do Willy Wonka and the Blood Factory.
Make this into a fucking horror movie?
I just gave it a title. Anyone's going to use this title, I want royalties.
Royalties. Me and Greg's actually going to make the movie. I'm going to play Willy Wonka.
Well, I'm doing all the stunt doubles.
You're going to be my stunt double?
Oh, shit. I guess so.
We're going to be like walking around and I'm going to throw a fucking fro on you.
Yeah. I'm paying for my own stunts.
Dude, we need to do a Willy Wonka horror movie. There needs to be fucking a horror movie. There you
go. Willy Wonka and the Blood Factory.
They need to do an Ed and Eddie prequel that shows like the kids' deaths and stuff. They need to do a fucking Courage the Cowardly Dog. Like what it all looked like in reality. They need to do all of these and make the theories real.
But I still couldn't get my head around the Titanic and Terminator theory thing. That's wild.
What was your favorite? Was that your favorite theory we did?
That, but the Willy Wonka one kind of caught me by surprise because obviously he was a bit of a creep.
Yeah, those two theories made the most sense in my opinion.
Like Rugrats was kind of weird.
Yeah, but the other theories sounded like fan theories. Like they could be real, they couldn't. But
sounds like an urban legend.
But Willy Wonka and the Titanic one, as weird as they both sound very plausible.
Just like it's pretty. Because when you were like talking about this, I was like looking it up on Google. It was Willy Wonka, a calculated serial killer in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Mm-hmm. And also...
And he was not sweet and charming, and as in the film make it out to be.
If it wasn't okay, they had that creepy tunnel scene, which proves that he's a serial killer in and of itself, and the fact that the Oompa Loompas had orchestrated song and dance for each killing.
That's pre-Megan.
Yeah, that's premeditated, bro.
That's no, I meant the movie Megan.
Oh, well, that was a premeditated kind of thing. Like they have a song. Rob Zombie needs to do a new Willy Wonka.
Yes, Rob. I know you don't listen to us, and I don't blame you. But
He does.
He wishes. Make a Willy Wonka and a Blood Factory movie, please.
I have a movie idea for Rob Zombie. He needs to do a new Rocky Horror Picture Show. I want to see Rob Zombie as Dr. Frankenfurter.
Yeah.
Have you seen Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Yeah, it's been a very long, very, very, very long.
It is
it's a fucking masterpiece of a musical horror movie. I call it a musical horror movie.
It is. It is basically it's a horror movie musical with Meatloaf and shit. And it's one of my favorite musicals. Between that and Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd's wild too. I haven't seen it in so long, but that could be like some weird theory behind that too.
Well, there's not much of a theory behind Sweeney Todd, though. He's a killer barber.
But, could it be related to Jack the Ripper?
Could be.
Yeah.
I actually did hear that theory once before, Gorak.
I didn't. I just thought I'll just make that up.
That does make sense. I also heard like a serial killer theory that Jack the Ripper and Zodiac Killer is the same person.
Maybe. We could do a part 2 of this.
Serial killer conspiracies?
Yeah.
I actually have one about the Zodiac Killer that I love talking to people about. It's a jump to the left and a step to the right. And put your hand on your hips and bring your knees in tight.
But the Rocky Horror Picture Show was so it was so fucking, at the time when I watched it was so fucking weird.
It's a great movie though.
But it's enjoyable to watch. There's so much happening. It was kind of like when Rob Zombie described A House of a Thousand Corpses. He said he described the movie House of a Thousand Corpses of Texas Chainsaw Massacre meets the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I can see it. Rocky Horror Picture Show is my favorite Tim Curry movie.
Mine's it.
Did you ever see and Renee brought up the song, so I had to think of it. The Time Warp. Jack Black and Kyle Gass, Tenacious D covered that song.
That would have been cool.
Oh, by the way, Rocky Horror Picture Show is the only Rocky movie in the franchise that doesn't have Sylvester Stallone. Very interesting thing to note.
Shit, I thought he was in there as Rocky, like as in the birth of Rocky.
He should have been.
Yeah.
He really fucking should have been. By the way, guys, we do have a Pink Sock Reacts this week. I have the poster somewhere, but it's not in the studio. We're going to be doing Clue. Speaking of Tim Curry, he's in Clue. Great Tim Curry film. We're going to be reviewing it on Pink Sock Reacts. And we are also going to be doing Instagram live hangouts again, and we're going to be doing that kind of stuff. Go follow Gorak on all his socials. He does have an All My Links now. What is your All My Links website?
Give me a second.
Because
I could barely remember my own phone number.
Because we need to get that.
It's just allmylinks.com/Gorak/Gorak-1985.
So it's this?
No, like the dash in the middle, not underscore.
Oh, not an underscore, like a dash.
Yeah.
They're like this.
Yeah.
Okay. Go to allmylinks.com/Gorak-1985. You can find me everywhere under Mike Usenick. I do have all my links on my Instagram. And Pink Sock, we are everywhere. We're on Instagram. We're on Snapchat. Not Snapchat. We need to, though. But we are at allmylinks.com/Pink Sock Podcast. You can find us on Spotify and all kinds of other stuff. We are no longer doing video format on Spotify because they're giving us issues with uploading videos for some reason. It takes forever and then the video won't work. I don't know why. But you can also catch me on Dabs with Dads. I believe I'm going to be on there tonight. So that's going to be fun. Gorak, is there anything you would like to do? Like, I know we are going to be reviewing Clue this week, and I think we're going to be reviewing that 90s
show. So I said we should start doing more newer stuff.
We also should get back into reviewing music.
Yeah. So I want to review Meshuggah's latest album.
I want to review Iggy Pop's latest album. Like, we can do like a full episode of like various albums that came out.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, we're going to cut this off of here. It was an amazing episode of Pink Sock Podcast. Next week, what should our topic be for Monday?
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We'll finger it out.
We can finger, yeah. Just don't get stuck in there.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you love this episode. We love you all. And if you have a pink sock, put lotion on it or take pills or whatever. It helps to push it back in.
Really? I use bleach.
You use bleach? That would be painful.
Oh, well. No pain, no gain.
But anyway, my favorite theory that we covered, yours was what, Willy Wonka, you said?
Yeah, that makes more sense on his background, though.
The most sense.
You reckon Jigsaw's dad is Willy Wonka?
Yes. And also, yeah, for me, the theory that's most realistic is Willy Wonka. I love you all. Thank you, Gorak, for being a part of this each and every week. And I can't wait for next week because we don't know what we're talking about yet, but it will be posted on Instagram, Facebook. So keep up with everything Pink Sock.
I can't wait to get some sleep.
Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Subscribe, because we have merch coming. You like my mesh shirt? I need to get a Pink Sock one. But anyway, love you all. And as always, live long, rock hard.
Stay hard, motherfuckers.
Stay hard.